Good evening and welcome to this week's CMO 102 Super League midweek review show. I'm very glad to announce I'm joined by Chudley Cannon's boss, Scott Sadler, who's going to run through all the game week action in the show that I'm going to personally title Viva la 271. So, Scott, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
No worries, glad to be here. Thanks, Viva. Evening Super League.
The blog the last few weeks, I don't know if you or anyone else has noticed, I've kind of been putting it in order of where teams are in the league. So I think for continuality, if we go down that process.
Yeah, sounds good, yeah.
Cool. Well, the first game I'd like to go through with you then. Ardsley Celtic now sit at the top after a 1-0 win over rock bottom Somerset Floths. My first question for you, actually, before we get into the in-game analysis, Ardsley sitting top, what do you make of the start they've made after the season they had last year?
Yeah, I think it's quite well known that Hodgie was a bit disappointed with his season last year. Sort of said that he was going to give it 6 or 7 games, and if not, he was going to call it a day and whatever. Made a slight tweak to his formation. I don't think he's changed anything massive. But you know what? He's got the players in the right positions and he's got a real tune out of them this year. Made a really good start. Really impressive. Really pleased for Hodgie, fellow Leeds fan, obviously.
Well, it's interesting to say about the players because the one note I made from the punditry stroke commentary team at the weekend is they described the two centre-backs and the two holding midfielders as a weak central four. Now, that included the ever-controversial Ibrahim Said, who most people say is excellent, and he's got 1 or 2 doubters. But after the game, and yes, I appreciate, with all due respect, they were playing the Sloths, Stankovic rated 10 out of 10. What do you make of their central sort of defensive unit?
Well, I think Vieira is the best player on the game. I think quite a lot of people agree with that. It's been mentioned on comms before. Said is a bit like Marmite. Some people love him, some people hate him. You can get a real tune out of him on a home save. Some people doubt whether he's Super League quality. I think the start that he's made this year, the performances that he's put in show that actually he can hold his own. And I think being alongside Vieira in there is working wonders for him. He's obviously a dab hand at taking penalties as well. So, look, I think Vieira and Said in there have done a great job. Real solid spine to the team, 2 quality centre-backs as well. But then again, to have Dejan Stankovic on the bench and come in Vieira's absence and do a great job, get a 10 out of 10, it's a real blessing for Hodgie to have that sort of squad depth at his disposal, I guess.
Yeah, and other players who are unfortunate to be labelled as being part of a weak unit. I believe it's Kufra, who's the centre-back that's come in the last few weeks, and been sensational. Always been in the talk for Team of the Week. Been brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, Hodgie started with Kivu and Terry, who obviously did a good job. I mean, they've conceded a few goals this year, but they've also scored an awful lot of goals, which is what's propelled them to the top of the league. But Kufra has come in and done a good job. He is, again, a very good player. There isn't any real bad players in the Super League. There's good players, very good players, and then there's sort of the elite. Kufra is a very good player. He was solid on Sunday. He scored a 9 and complete shutout. They stopped Crespo scoring. Crespo got a goal. He got the only goal of the game against us the week before. Thought Crespo might have sort of kicked on from there after let's be honest, a bit of a shit start to the season. But Stankovic has come in the central defensive midfield role, done a great job. Kufra scored a 9. Hodgie will be absolutely delighted that these players that are coming in are just continuing the good form that the other guys have sort of started with.
Well, on the subject of centre-backs, if we move over to Sloths, Yepes not selected again, and speculation he could be leaving. I know I would be very interested in a player of his quality, and I imagine most of the Super League teams would be.
Yeah, Yepes is a real good, solid centre-back again, and for him not to be playing is a bit baffling for me. And he's left-footed, which brings great balance. And to be honest, looking through the Slough squad, he probably is their best centre back. So for me, he needs to be in there.
Someone who did make his return to the Slough team was Landon Donovan, a player who, in what was a squad that didn't perform very well last year, was one of the few shining lights at the back end of the season. Are you pleased to see him back included?
I'm not a massive fan of Donovan. I think he'd do a decent job. Some of the guys on comms have sort of said that he, based on his performances last year, probably should have got more game time. I'm not so sure how good he is. Rob's tried an awful lot of different things this year, a lot of different personnel, a lot of different formations, and he's sort of gone with the Parma 2-7-1, if you like. They held us off the week before and got a 1-0 win. Well done to Rob for getting off the mark. But let's be honest, we were fucking devastated to lose at home to Sloths. I think Rob's looking for a bit of consistency. He's played the same formation back to back. To lose 1-0 away at the top of the league is no disgrace. But, the guys who he's going to be relying on to create and score the goals, D'Alessandro, Donovan, Crespo, didn't perform. Whether that's just because it was a complete absolute barrage from start to finish, I'm not so sure. But, let's hope Rob's turned a corner. 2 solid performances. He's only conceded 1 goal in his last 2. And let's hope he can kick on.
Before we do move on, one player who has been positive for Slough last couple of games, Taibbi in goal since he's come in.
Yeah, Taibbi's coming in, done a real good job. I'm a bit. I think it's real tough with goalkeepers. Goalkeepers can quite easily be highly rated. They can be highly valued. People can think that they're real good keepers, and then they put them in the Super League and they just throw in a 5 or a 6. So it's real disappointing. We've had goalkeeping issues ourselves, and we've sort of gone with the sort of unknown Andre. Nobody's really heard of him. Been criticised for picking him. Vesterveld should play. Pagliuca, I think Ryan said, is still the best keeper in the squad, but he's not scored less than 7 in the 3 games that he's played, and he's done a real good job. So, for Taibbi to come in and get 8s and 9s, again, probably be delighted.
Well, let's move on to the teams that are now 2nd and 3rd in the table. Bolton winning 1-0 away at Panathinaikos, a game which caused 2 very different reactions in the commentary box. What did you make of El Baltica?
Oh, listen, the show was fantastic. The rivalry between those 2 guys, I think they're good friends as well. It made for a real good show. Probably the most enjoyable show so far this season. The build-up's been brilliant, and the reaction since has been brilliant as well. I don't think Macca's going to let this one go for some time. Maybe if he gets in the playoffs or could even take Ryan's crown off at the end of the year and win the Super League, he might sort of let it go. But I think this one's not sitting well with Macca. He was very critical of the way Ryan lined up. Ryan will say he lined up to do a job, and ultimately did a job. They got the 1-0 win. It was a pretty close game. Some good performances. I just think Bolton edged it in terms of, well, Bolton created slightly more chances. They took a chance. When you've got the quality of Montella up front, there's always a chance that you're going to get a goal. I think Macca will be disappointed that he hasn't scored. Again, his defence, Udeze, Cannavaro, Dida have all performed really well for him. Nobody really stands out as having a poor game. 2 quality teams, 2 quality performances, and Bolton nicked it.
Couple of interesting things you said there about Bolton setting up to do a job, if you will. I'm not going to be drawn on the hypocrisy of that statement, given the crap I get from the Bolton manager, particularly about setting up to do a job. But one at the back, I tried it and almost pulled it off as well against Panathinaikos. Clearly, it's a tactic that if you've got the players, it can work against them. And Torres returned as well.
Yeah, good to see Torres get a game. I don't think we've seen Ryan go 3 up top. Certainly not this season. I'm not sure whether he did last season. I think the difference is that Ryan's. Sorry, say that again.
I believe it was described as shithousery, a label that's come my way more than once.
Yeah, I think Pfeiffer, the difference is Ryan's first of all, Super League reigning champion. Second of all, has been extremely consistent in his sort of team selection, his personnel selection. You know, he wanted and felt he had to do something different against Parma based on the start that they've made. And what a start they've made, by the way. You know, well done to Chris Mack on his start, because he's absolutely flying. Ryan felt that this was the game to try something different. I think the criticism that comes your way, Fifey, is that you try something different every single game, whereas maybe a little bit of consistency on your part in terms of selection, formation, you know, might sort of steady the ship.
Oh, it's interesting you should mention sort of the tactical side of things, because I had a question that I wanted to put out there on Sunday, but the comment sadly got overlooked, so I never got to ask it. So I will ask you now. I was interested in the Panathinaikos tactics, that the holding midfielders had the attacking sort of forward run arrows, after there was a few questions during the broadcast about attacking midfielders shouldn't have the arrow between the strikers. What do you make of the defensive midfielders having the forward arrows?
Look, it's all down to personal preference. I mean, I play all sorts of different formations on home saves. I've tried all sorts of different things, especially sort of since I've been involved in the Super League. I think I like the attacking arrows on the defensive midfielders. It pushes the team further up the field when you're in possession, when you've got the ball. You know, it gives you more options. I think sort of Maka mentioned that it creates a lot of triangles for the short passing and chance creation that he likes to play. You know, whereas if they didn't have the arrows, they might just be sat a little bit deeper in front of the back four, and they've not got so many options in terms of creativity. So, you know, I don't think we can argue with the fact that it's working. They're top of the league. They're creating a lot of chances. They've scored a lot of goals. So, yeah, you know, it's working.
Now, I'm never going to be one to criticise choices managers make as such, because I don't have the best track record myself in the Super League, as well documented. But C-Mac himself, I think, went on record as saying dropping Riquelme was an error.
Yeah, I think in reflection, he's probably right. The only player in the entire game who scored less than a 7 was Ambrosini. You know, Bolton created slightly more chances. Oh, sorry, Raul had a 6 as well. But, you know, I think Mac will be disappointed. I think he put him in there to make sure they were solid defensively. Whereas if he'll have been maybe a little bit braver, played Riquelme in the sort of free role that he's talked about, he might have created a little bit more and, you know, could have quite well got a goal.
Let's head on to fourth in the table then. Valen losing at home, I suppose you could say surprisingly, to the ever-entertaining Hooligans. And the talk pre-match was about the positioning of Cafu and Lizarazu.
Yeah, look, I think it was the shock of the week. You know what you're going to get with Hulls. They line up the same week in, week out. I think Martin sort of mentioned that they're in a real shit situation in terms of injuries, suspensions. I think there's a bit of unrest within the squad. But no doubt about it, it's a quality squad. But like I said, you know what you're going to get with Hull, so it's quite easy to prepare. They are inconsistent, but they've got some real quality in there. In terms of Lizarazu and Cafu, you know, I don't think you can argue with that. Cafu was up there with one of the best players in the league last year. Lizarazu and also Placente, when he came in, did a real good job. You know, it's tried and tested. Valen sort of steamrolled the league last year up until sort of the final. You know, I think they were quite comfortably the best team in the league. Andreas has found a real good way of playing. He's found a system that works. He likes it. So for me, that's a non-starter. You know, it's proven it works. Move on.
A lot of the talk from the Hooligan side of things was about individual players. We know Salas was injured. We know Ronaldinho was injured, so we can take them out of the equation for the moment. Brett Emerton, is it simply because he doesn't play the position that Thiago sticks to? Beckham has been dropped. I think he's just fell out with him. I think Thiago may have booted a boot at him himself.
Yeah, maybe so, yeah.
Defoe came back.
Yeah. for me, I would be trying to get Brett Emerton in that team. I know that he likes his system. He's very sort of one-dimensional in that aspect, in that he's not going to change his system. He might tweak his personnel here and there. I think if they're winning games and they've got no injury suspensions, he would probably play the same team week in, week out. You know, for me, I think a slight change in terms of if they move one of the centre halves to a CDM and play 2 at the back, 3 CDMs, I think Brett Emerton on that right-sided CDM is sort of the perfect fit. That's what I would potentially look at. But, you know, they like the system, it works. I would be trying to get Emerton in there.
I think a lot, like we said with Yepes earlier, Emerton, it would be very high on a lot of managers' transfer lists should the opportunity arise. We head to 5th in the table in a game you were particularly interested in, as Churchtown, in Game of the Week, went down 4-3 to someone known as Chudley Cannons. There's lots to discuss. I will throw a load of statements out there and then off you go. Tell us everything you want to know. You took the lead. It was against the run of play, but it was only early doors. There's still plenty of time for both sides. You mentioned, obviously, about people talking about your goalkeepers. That was brought up again. Rossini was back. Etzebaria's position at the start of the game was questioned, just where you placed him tactically. And Emre made his debut.
Yeah, so we'll go from the top, the goalkeeper. I changed my goalkeeper 3 weeks ago. Vesterveld has been inconsistent, as has Pagliuca a couple of times he's played. Bought Andre in. His attributes look great. He got his chance. You know, we were frustrated. He got his chance and he's come in and he's not let anybody down. I think if you probably look back over the average ratings over the last 3 weeks of the goalkeepers, he'll be up there with the best in the league. So for now, we're happy and he'll continue to play. Emre came in and made his debut. Yes, he did. Mark Kerr's been shit. He was shit last year and he's been shit this year. I don't know whether it's just one of them saves or what. We've tried him centrally on his own. We've tried him centrally in a 2. We're just not getting a tune out of him. So, you know, a bit of frustration.
Mark Kerr, he's a good version of the band, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, look, we left him in there with Emre, but he's been disappointing. We just thought it was the right time to bring Emre in. He fit the system. Etzebarea, again, you know, his position, he's been talked about a lot this year. Right when I took over at the start of the season or before the season started, there was a lot of interest in him. And to be honest, I was happy to let him go. I just couldn't get the right deal over the line. I tried real hard to get Robbie Keane from the Dragons, but they didn't quite.
Well, that's interesting.
They weren't quite ready to let him go. I sort of approached that a couple of times with Jamie. I think based on the fact that he was so good last year, they didn't want to let him go, which is a bit surprising because he's been in and out of the side this year and nowhere near at his best. But anyway,
had Boise have been in charge of Dragons and not the assistant, I think that deal would have gone through. Because if I remember rightly, it was Boise who made Etzebarea the household name in the Super League with his outrageous performances for Hull. Yeah.
So look, that it was talked about. We didn't get it over the line. Maybe it's something we can revisit. Who knows? And then Rossini comes back in. Yeah, obviously he was the top goal scorer last year. He's proven Super League quality. He is a real quality player. He started quite well. He got a couple of goals. I think he was joint top of the assist charts as well after about 4 games. Had a couple of off weeks. We wanted to go one up front. We thought the big physical presence of Harasimovic the week before was the right way to go. That didn't pan out. We didn't get the goal. If we'd have played Rossini, we might well have done. Anyway, we move on. We change shape back to something that we've sort of familiar with and that we've played before. We played them both up front together. Both got a goal. Both got an assist. Tick in the box.
It's always interesting when someone can turn over Churchtown the way you did. And for me, watching, what was interesting was Barry Ferguson, who's been labelled as quiet this year, was absolutely dominating the first half. But by the end of it, the likes of Emre's ratings had really shot up. Was it a case of winning that midfield battle, won the game?
Yeah, I think, you know, I sort of mentioned in some pre-match pre-match, post-match comments on Twitter that we dug deep. We had to dig deep, and we had to play for 92 minutes, whereas Churchtown switched off. They let us in. We got a late equaliser. Let's be honest, we'd have taken it. We'd have taken 3-3 after 89 minutes. But the guys were, had a bit of fire in the belly. They were on top in the game. They kicked on and they went straight down the end and scored again. And I think, to be honest, after the 90th minute, we had another chance. We could have got a fifth. So absolutely delighted. I think a couple of things. I think the shape worked well for us. I think there was a massive overconfidence from Kieran. He made a lot of comments on Twitter prior to the game that the strikers were licking their lips. They were going to score 5. Chilaver's going to come in and score a free kick or a penalty. Well, let's be honest, Chilaver came in and had an absolute stinker. And if he hadn't played him, they might not have lost the game. So, look, we're delighted to send Kevin away with a bit of egg on his face. But, look, they've got a great squad at Churchtown, up there. If I was to have the choice of which squad to pick, that would be in the top 1 or 2, I think. I really like the squad. They've made a great start. Bit of overconfidence. Kevin will learn from that, I guess.
Viewers, when they get to see this, will see that Mr. Aldred has joined us. Good evening.
Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Scott. Evening, viewers.
Evening, buddy. How you doing?
I thought I'd dive on. I'm not too sure I can stay on for too long, but I thought I'd say hi. How's everyone doing?
You've probably joined at the perfect time for you, anyway. The next game we're moving on to is the final team currently in the playoffs, Midlothian winning 3-1 at home to the Devils.
All right.
If we start with the hosts, still no Mpenza, still not getting a game. Ortega the last couple of weeks has made a real impact. And did you guys see the video that the assistant boss Rox made earlier today? Superb quality.
I've not seen Rock's video today. Just on Mpenza, I think, let's be honest, they've had a bit of a falling out. It didn't make the best start. Since they've changed shape and they've gone one up front and Vieri's been banging the goals in, it's a long road back for Mpenza for me. I think Ian sort of said he'd happily negotiate the sale of Mpenza come the transfer window. If they're going to go one up front, there's not many out there better than Vieri. So, I think he could be sat with splinters in his ass for some time.
Ryan, you a fan of Ortega?
A fan of Ortega, yeah. I think I mentioned on the show on Sunday that if you can keep him happy, he's fantastic, but he's quite difficult to keep happy. So you'll have to kind of maybe stick with him even when he has a couple of bad games, which I know some people can get a little bit twitchy if someone has a bad game and then they don't see him again for 3 or 4 weeks. If you do that with Ortega, then then the issue is he will never come back into the team, because if he gets dropped, he'll get upset and he won't want to play for you. But just to kind of follow up on what Scott said there, I'd probably rate Vieri as probably in the top 2 strikers on the game for consistency alongside Crespo. I think he's that good.
Yeah, I think
if he is going to play with one up top, then there's no room for Mpenza. So Mpenza's only getting back in if there's 2 up there.
Obviously, Devils, we sit second bottom. You asked 3 questions in the broadcast, which I've written down to answer at the end of you guys analysing a few of the other points. I'm going to address all 3 that you asked. But if I can give you... Actually, Scott, I'll give you the first 2, and then Ryan, the third one is yours. Okay? So, Scott, I went with the Inzaghi brothers up front this time. Do you think, moving forward, if I stick with the 2, they could work? I mean, a lot of talk about Clivert, Ronaldo. I've got Huntelaar as well, who's not played this season.
I think, Pfeiffer, you've got Pippo Inzaghi, Ronaldo, Clivert. There's absolutely no room for Simone Inzaghi for me. I mean, I know he scored, he got a consolation goal, but the other 3 are at a level above, if you're asking me. So, no, I don't think that they are a 2 moving forward. You can't leave Patrick Clivert sat on the bench.
No, fair enough. Questions were asked about me including Elmander. I think he's played last 2 now. And Martin did make the point in the broadcast of showing his stats, because attribute-wise, for the position I had him in, he's actually not bad at all. And a lot of criticism about me playing Ronaldo in that position, who people say isn't suited to it.
Almenda's just not going to cut it at this level 5 if you're asking me. You know, you've got some real quality in there. You know, Oliveira could do a job. Even Zidane. You know, Ronaldo, if you want to drop him a little bit deeper. But not for me. Not for me, mate.
Ryan, the other point I made prior to your questions was there's a distinct bias when the Bolton Phoenix manager is on when talking about Swindon. Why do you think this is?
Just, if you repeat that question, mate, I do apologise.
Yeah, no way. Just saying,
what was the question?
When the Bolton Phoenix manager is live on air, there's a distinct bias of negativity when discussing the Devils. I just wondered why you thought that was.
It's just a bit of fun. That's what it's all about, isn't it? I know you can take it by first off. I'll let you have it.
Very, very thick skin here, mate.
No, I think you do sometimes make it easy for people to talk about you, really, because you do change things each week. You do react to everything, and it's good.
Mate,
it's good
I don't have to try. The most talked about team in Super League history. But you did ask me to address 3 specific questions, which I will do. You asked me why Ronaldo didn't play.
Before you crack on with that, can I ask you how you got hold of Ronaldo? Because what was the deal with Thiago? Because it seems he was kind of setting up a South American, Brazilian-based team, and then obviously he didn't have the best season last year. Then all of a sudden, I thought that was one of the strangest transfers of the summer. I was wondering how that came about.
Well, Taribo West went the other way. It wasn't a deal I was actively planning to do when the window came about. I obviously needed to freshen things up, and he said Ronaldo would be available if a decent deal was offered. Taribo had possibly the worst season in his Championship manager history with me. I just couldn't get him to score anything over a 7 in a game. I don't know what I was doing so badly wrong with him specifically. So I made the offer, and obviously he had bad defensive issues himself last year. And we both said, yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
I definitely think you got the better end of that deal. I know Ronaldo sometimes gets a bit of flack within the Super League and on Champ in general, because he's not as good on the game as he was in real life at that time. But I still think there's different levels there. I think Ronaldo is definitely a cut above Taribo West, and I still think Ronaldo is, I'd say, definitely in and around the top 10 strikers on the game. Maybe not on top in terms of goals scored, but definitely in terms of total contribution.
Well, on the subject of Ronaldo, just to fly through the 3 questions you asked me, why was Ronaldo not playing? It just hadn't been working from the last couple of games. So similar to what Scott was saying earlier, I don't know if you heard about Rossini. We just thought, change it up a bit, see if we could get something different to work. Sadly, it didn't, and he's very much in the plans for this weekend. You also asked for the same, why no Zidane? The honest truth of the matter is, he has only played well for me doing that sort of Barry Ferguson type role when he's been in the midfield on his own. And some of the teams we played against recently, I don't think I could go into it with just one centre midfielder. I just didn't think it was wise. He's literally, probably with the exception of Matt Holland, I think, got our 2nd lowest average rating of the whole squad this season. And you asked me no clue on my best team. I don't think that I've got no clue. I have an idea of what my best 11 is, but the way I would want that to play simply has not worked in the Super League when I've tried it before. So I'm kind of mixing it up a bit. Yes, obviously the results aren't coming, but I'm just trying to get the balance, because last year we scored goals, we just couldn't defend. This year we can defend, we just can't score goals. It's trying to get it right. That's the simple fact of the matter from them specific 3 questions.
Pfeiffer, just from me on Zidane, looking through your squad, Zidane is your best player. You have to find a system that gets the best out of Zidane and fit the rest around him, because he'll create goals, he'll dominate games, he'll score goals. You have to find a way of getting Zidane in there, scoring 8s, 9s, and 10s every single week, and the rest of it will slowly come together, providing you're not chopping and changing week in, week out.
I completely agree with Scott there. I mean, absolutely 100% what he said. And the inquiry at the end of last season, so can I get hold of Zidane? The issue you've got with Zidane, and similar to Batistuta at Hornets, is that you've got one of the best players in the game, but he's got a clock ticking on me. So you've got to be playing him in these first few seasons. You've got to be getting the best out of him, because he's worthless in a couple of years. So if you're not going to play him week in, week out and try and get the best out of him, then you should be looking to get good value in the transfer market.
Well, as you both would have seen, and I think you've both had a go now. I offered up the Be The Boss hashtag today. I put out my team pack, and I know Scott's put a team together. If everyone's fit, what would your Swindon Devils 11 be?
Myself, I think you've only got. I've not really had a chance to look at it yet. Now. It's been a bit of a busy day, but I think you've got Costanzo as your keeper. Your 2 centre backs. You've got to play Montero and whoever's best out of Mendes and Ekiog.
Yep.
Yeah. I think probably Mendes just edges it for me, but Ekiog's not a bad defender, and I don't think you've got a bad centre back partnership there.
I think I would edge with Mendes purely because Ekiog and Montero are both left-footed.
Ekiog's both footed.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. On the game, he's both footed, yeah.
Yeah, he's either.
Then I always, as you know from things, you're playing a left wing back and a right wing back. Now, Ashley Cole's the obvious choice at left wing back. What are your options at right wing back, Fife? I've not had a chance to look at it yet.
Pancaro, Mills, I suppose you could say Matt Holland, or if you want the more attacking ones, you've got Ebiade and Sador.
Well, Mills and Pancaro, forget about. I think probably it depends what you're doing with that midfield, because you want Sador in there if you can. So I'd probably be edging towards Ebiade there. He can definitely do a job. Even Matt Holland, actually. Matt Holland's going to do a solid, more defensive job. I'd probably, it's out of those 2. Then defensive midfielder centre, you've got Sador then. 2 centre midfielders with attacking arrows on, Zidane and
Oliveira?
Yeah, Zidane and Oliveira. Then I'd probably Ronaldo and Clive up front. That's right. That's
you've done?
Pardon?
I've put a team together, Ryan, for Pfeiffer, pretty much playing an identical system. Sort of the system that you've played most of this season, but rather than 3 centre mids, I playing 2 centre mids with a cam. So I've got
It's something I play at home, that.
Yeah, it's same with me. It's the system that Chudley played on Sunday. So I had exactly the same keeper, back 4 the same. In the CDM role, I had Foe with Zidane and Sador in the centre mids together. And then I had Oliveira in the hole with, I went with Inzaghi and Clivert, just purely because I don't think Ronaldo scores enough goals.
I think I'd maybe. The issue is, I think you've got to play him. He's that good. I agree with you, he didn't score enough goals, and I didn't disagree with Pfeiffer earlier on in the season when he was playing in camp. I think that's not a bad position for him. He can definitely play there, and he'll definitely contribute. So for me, if you're gonna, you've got rid of West, you've got Ronaldo in, you've got to play him. So play in camp if you're not going to play him up front, and if you're happy with, if you're happy up front with Clivert's fantastic. No getting around that, and then. You've got Huntelaar is a bit young, and Simone Inzaghi is not there for me. I think people Inzaghi will get you goals, he just doesn't do much else.
Well, I'd love to discuss this more, but I've had the little warning saying about the time that we've got left, so I'll fly through the last couple of games. The game of the rant, I'll call it, as BTEC went down 2-3 to the tactically inept Aster, whose tactics were absolutely awful. The side arrows were atrocious. Babel was in the wrong position. CMAC could not have ranted anymore, and Aster turned it round to win.
Yeah, it was quite funny on comms, I must admit. Maka really went in and out. I think we had a bit of a chat before the broadcast, and he was like, because Maka was kind of half following the Super League last season, and he was kind of getting into it more and more, and he couldn't understand week on week how Aster were doing so well and how they were up near the top of the league. And then they started this season, they had quite a bad start by Aster Alf standards. And so he thought, do you reckon Alf would be all right if I go in and him? I think he's done it for a little bit of, Chris, I think everyone, when they go on comms, they try and have a little bit of an agenda. Yeah, and just have a little bit of fun. And he's gone in on it, and it's been I thought it was quite enjoyable, actually. It worked out, end up with egg on his first, which was quite enjoyable for us a lot after this turnaround. I think everyone enjoyed that apart from Ian. He'd have been crying.
Scott, if I can talk to you about BTEC, obviously Adilson did have the goal disallowed, and they did go into the game with only 3 subs, which was quite funny. Pizarro was dropped, but Zé Roberto was back. Him and Contra, are they as good as Dede and Zambrotta as wing-backs?
No, not for me. Zé Roberto, he's probably on par with Dede. Zé Roberto might even edge him, but Zambrotta on that right-hand side is fantastic. I think a lot's been made of BTEC this year and the business that they've done and the squad that they've put together. And you know what? 1 to 8, they're up there with the best in the league. I just think they lack a little bit up front. I'm not stuck on Edison. He got a goal, he had one disallowed, but Pizarro's okay. Costantini too, not for me. Is not great. I think they're a 20 goal a season striker away from really challenging to win this league.
You've got Adilson, you've got Pizarro, you've got, is it Palermo and Costantinu? I took Inzaghi off him in the summer. Would you put Inzaghi above them 4?
Yeah, I would. Playing the system that Ian's been playing this year, I would have kept all of Inzaghi and probably played him alongside Pizarro. That would be my preference based on my experience of playing the game. And I've never really taken to Palermo or Adilson, maybe because of their age.